Welcome into Soul Plus Systems. I'm Jen, and this isn't surface level conversation. This is where we break down what it actually takes to rebuild your life from the inside out. Today, I'm sitting with Steven, and instead of telling a long story, we're going straight into the moments that change people. Steven, let's start here. What did addiction actually feel like for you day to day? Not the story, the reality.
The reality was it took everything from me. It had me living in a constant fog. It had me living in a place of just discomfort and pain all the time. Something that I just wanted to escape from, and yet the more I used and I thought I was escaping, the deeper it put me into the darkness.
And what was happening in your head during that time?
Wow. Honestly, that's Pandora's box. There, the things that were going on in my mind were it would be 1 second I'm completely elated and everything's great and you couldn't bring me down, and then in the next stroke you could have told me I just won the lottery and it would have been brutal. Like it had me so torn up inside and in such a dark place. It was really horrible to be in, and it was a vicious cycle because the more I used to escape, the more I wanted to escape the using, and I just kept following the same pattern over and over again.
Right. What were you trying to avoid? What were you trying to escape at that time?
What I was really trying to escape was I was trying to escape myself, and I was trying to escape uncomfortable feelings that I hadn't worked through. I suffer from mental illness as well. I have BPD and bipolar 2 and ADHD and PTSD. So, living with these things was difficult in its own right, and one of the hardest things I had was I had no identity. So I would chameleon into the groups that I was in and around those people, and so when I was around people that were using, they were my people, right? And I felt them, and it was just but that wasn't who I was. And so I was struggling with a lack of identity and knowing who I was, but also struggling with past traumas and past pains that I hadn't dealt with, and I was trying to run from that.
Yeah, there's always a moment, whether people admit it or not, when everything hits. What was yours?
you know, the moment that it kind of hit me was probably when I got in trouble with the law. And, I was sitting in the courtroom and I'm sitting here going, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, what have I done? Right? This has taken so much from me. And in the same, at that exact same moment, the only thing I was thinking was, can these people hurry up so I can get the hell out of here and use? Right? It was like, and it was that moment when I'm going, what is going on? Right? Like the rest of my life is sitting in the balance right here, and instead of focusing on this, the only thing I can think of is wanting to leave here so I can go get high.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a powerful moment, It's like, what made that different from all the other times that you said that you would change?
I think it's, the funny thing is in that moment, I don't think anything was going to change. It was kind of taken out of my hands at that point. And, my lawyer had worked out that, we'll get the court dates and all of this stuff pushed forward, and lesser penalties and stuff if you go to rehab. And my family, who I thought had given up on me, were like, no, you know what, you're going to rehab. And they were like, you're going to rehab. So it was the decision that was made for me, and in the moment I was really upset about it. But now when I look back at it, that was my saving grace.
So would you say it was fear, loss, or clarity?
Oh, you know what? It was definitely it was fear because I didn't gain clarity until I was actually in recovery. Even in my first weeks, first month of rehab, everything was foggy, right? I still thought I wanted to be in that place. I was still planning on going back and using. So clarity was definitely not part of it, but I could definitely say it was fear. Fear was definitely a part of it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Most people think that change is motivation. It's not, it's just structure. So, what actually changed in your daily life after that moment?
It was routine. It was a solid routine because the place that I went to, it was very structured. It was, morning wake up call at 7 a.m., breakfast at 8. First group was at 9:50. 9 o'clock. We got to go for a smoke break. 9:15 to 10:15 was second group. Next 15-minute smoke break. 10:30 to 11:30 was third group, and then we had lunch, and then it was journaling time. And it's crazy that I can still remember the routine, but that's how ingrained it got into me, right? And then it was we're off to the gym. Then it was some free time. Then it was supper. Then it was a meeting, and it was that structure and routine that actually grounded me and brought me back to reality.
Yeah. So, what system kept you from slipping back into it all?
In the beginning part of recovery, the thing that kept me going was I just kept myself busy to the point where it was really, I was running myself to exhaustion, right? I had a job that I was working. I was working as a mechanic for a construction company. I was the first one in at the shop, so I would open the shop, up at 4:30 in the morning, open the shop at 5, have the shop cleaned up, ready to go for the first trucks that would go out at 7, and then work, till 6:30, 7 o'clock every night, go home with just enough energy to be able to have supper, have some, or have a shower, and then literally crash out. Like, it wasn't even sleep. It was like pass out from exhaustion. And I would do that 6 days a week. And that was what really kind of kept me out of trouble. And it wasn't the greatest thing to do. When I look back at it now, and being an addictions counselor, it's not the most healthy thing to do, but that was what I did to keep me going, right? I needed the structure, I needed the routine, I needed that one thing that was a constant to keep going.
Who were you then versus who you are now?
Oh God, that's so crazy because who I am now is solid in that I know I am someone that is in active recovery. I'm so sorry. Let me just step that back a bit. I am an addict, and I will forever be an addict, and that's the way I choose to look at myself. And I do that because I know that recovery is a journey, right? And the difference is that I no longer live my life in active addiction. I live in active recovery, and that's working my what I call my program, and as they say. So what does that look like? It means that I stay healthy, I eat properly, I go to the gym, I see my counselor and my therapist, and I do the work on me that's important, and I find work-life balance. So when I look at who I am now, I am an addict who lives in active recovery, and I am an addictions counselor. I have decided that, I am going to give back what I have been given, which is this fresh start on life.
Yeah, it's powerful. What would the old version of you not even recognize about who you are today?
Oh wow! I think the dedication to one thing and not being ruled by an illicit substance. Right? And I might look at myself and be like, oh, well, you're lame, you're boring, whatever. But when I look at what I was doing then, I'm going, there was no reason for it. I understand the reason for it, but it brought nothing positive into my life. It only took from me. It never gave me anything. Even the escape that I thought I was getting at the time was fleeting.
And for someone listening right now, who's exactly where you were? They're not inspired, they're not motivated, they're still stuck. What do they actually need to hear?
That it's in you. You can do this. And help is out there, but you have to find it. It's not one of those things that's just going to fall into your lap. Like, it might. But if you want recovery, you have to want the change. And it's not easy. Anyone who thinks recovery is going to make life easy, you are sorely mistaken. Because when you're in active addiction, you put a lot of effort into using, right? Planning your next fix, getting your next fix, making sure you have more for later. How am I going to get more? Even if you just, as they say, read up, right? You're still worried about when is this going to run out? How long, what do I have to do to get the next one? And so you put a lot of effort and energy into that. And in recovery, I would tell all of my clients and all the people I've worked with that you have to double down on that. Recovery takes twice the amount of effort because it's not easy. It takes time, it takes dedication, and you have to deal with all of the underlying stuff, because a lot of times addiction is a symptom of something else. And just treating addiction is just putting a band-aid on a festering wound. It hides it for a little while, but you're not actually healing and getting better, right? A lot of the times you need to do the work on yourself, and it means going to counseling, going to therapy, going to groups. If AA is your thing, do AA. If it's smart recovery, do smart recovery. But that's working a program. That's working on you and getting the help you need.
Yeah, say it like it is. I mean, that's what this is about. It's not just surviving something, but rebuilding with intention. Steven, I appreciate you coming on and keeping this real. And for everyone listening, this is Soul Plus Systems, where we don't just talk about change, we build it. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you, where can they get a hold of you at?
They can get a hold of me on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at Recovery is Possible.
Perfect. Thanks for tuning in.